Hello and welcome back. I'm Jack.
And I'm Olivia.
And this is the show where we say what plenty of people are thinking, but far too few are prepared to say out loud.
Today, solar farms, green progress or green madness?
Because there's a video doing the rounds with a title that does not exactly whisper, does it?
No, it absolutely does not. Solar farms will kill. Subtle as a brick through a greenhouse.
But the reason it's cutting through is simple. A lot of people look out across the English countryside and think, hang on, when did food-producing land become an industrial energy estate?
And when did questioning that become heresy?
Exactly, because the establishment line is always the same. Don't ask questions, don't look too closely, don't mention food security, just clap for the panels.
And if you object, you're told you hate the planet.
Yes, that's the trick. Raise a concern and suddenly you're cast as some kind of eco-villain, even when the concern is painfully obvious. Why are we covering farmland with panels instead of putting more solar on warehouses, factories, supermarkets, schools and car parks, and roofs?
That is the killer question. Because if the argument is we need solar, fine, then start with the built environment. Start with ugly roofs, not open countryside.
Exactly, not rolling farmland in Lincolnshire.
And that's where this gets politically explosive, because this isn't just about energy, it's about priorities. What sort of country are we trying to be? A country that grows food, or a country that imports food and covers itself with hardware?
And let's be honest, Britain is not the south of Spain.
No, it isn't.
This idea that we can solar panel our way to national salvation in a cloudy island nation is sold with a straight face far too often.
Although, to be fair, the pro-solar side would say that's a bit glib. Solar output has grown, the technology has improved, and supporters argue these projects help cut emissions and reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels.
Yes, and that's the strongest case they've got. Energy security, lower carbon, homegrown power. I get it.
And there is a real argument that not every acre under solar is lost in the way critics suggest. Some advocates point to dual use, including grazing and so-called agrivoltaics.
Fine, but this is where the argument gets slippery, because can exist together in theory is not the same as works brilliantly at scale in the real world.
Right.
And the public can smell the gap between the brochure and reality.
Especially when local people see mile after mile of fencing, infrastructure, access tracks, substations, battery units, cabling, and then they're told, no, this is perfectly natural.
Natural? It's a power station in a field.
That's the point. Call it what it is.
And another thing, when ministers insist there's no real tension between food security and solar expansion, people simply don't believe them.
One reason that line gets challenged is because people can see large projects being pushed through in rural areas and productive land becoming part of the argument.
There it is. That is why people are angry. Because whenever this debate comes up, the public is told not to worry, nothing important is being lost, move along please, and then they see exactly the kind of land they feared might be taken, being taken.
Though the other side pushes back hard. They say only a very small percentage of total UK agricultural land would ever be covered by solar, even with a big expansion.
Yes, and that sounds comforting until you're the community staring at it. National percentages are the oldest trick in politics.
Meaning?
Meaning, governments love saying it's only a tiny fraction overall, but if that tiny fraction lands again and again in the same counties, on the same rural communities, near the same villages, then it does not feel tiny to them.
That's true.
And it also dodges the quality question. It's not just how much land, it's what land.
And that's why so many people say use poorer quality land first, use brownfield first, use rooftops first.
Which is a perfectly sane position. That's not anti-solar, that's anti-stupidity.
And that's where a lot of voters now are. They're not saying no solar ever. They're saying, why this scale? Why this location? And why does no one in charge ever seem to start with the obvious alternatives?
Yes. Why does the easiest question never get a serious answer? Why are there still huge commercial roofs sitting empty while fields are being industrialized?
Because roofs are fragmented, slower, more fiddly, less politically dramatic.
Less useful for announcing giant targets and posing in hard hats.
That as well.
And here's the other bit that drives people mad. The sales pitch is always emotional. Save the planet, save the future, save the children. But when locals raise emotional objections of their own, the landscape, the village, the character of a place, the feeling that the countryside is being transformed without consent, they're told those worries are backward.
Yes, there is a hierarchy of emotion, isn't there? Elite emotion counts. Local emotion is mocked.
Exactly.
And that's why videos like this get traction, not because every phrase is perfectly measured and moderate, but because they tap into a broader public feeling that this agenda is being pushed too fast, too crudely, and with too little honesty.
And too much moral bullying.
That as well.
Because, look, if the case for solar farms is really so strong, then make it honestly. Tell people the trade-offs, tell them the cost, tell them the land impact, tell them what happens in winter, tell them what backup is required, tell them who benefits, then let adults debate it.
Instead of pretending there are no downsides.
Exactly.
And one reason this row is not going away is very large projects are still being pushed while people are told the conflict is overblown.
Which means that this is no longer just an energy story, it's a democratic story.
A trust story.
A class story, frankly.
Go on.
Because the people designing these policies often do not live with the consequences. They don't wake up to the substation, they don't lose the view. They don't drive the roads clogged with construction traffic. And they're certainly not the ones being told, don't be selfish, this is for the greater good, while the greater good seems to always land in someone else's postcode.
What's strong?
But it's true.
And the political danger here is obvious. If ministers keep framing every objection as ignorance, they will turn a planning dispute into a full-blown backlash.
They already are.
And once people feel their countryside, food supply, local identity, and basic common sense are all being sneered at in one go, they dig in.
Quite right too.
So where does that leave the debate?
Pretty simple. Solar on roofs? Fine. Solar on brownfield? Sensible. Solar where it genuinely avoids the best farmland and genuinely works with local consent? Debate it. But blanket industrialization of the countryside under the banner of virtue, that's where the public starts saying, no, enough.
And that's the point people in Westminster keep missing. This is not just a row about panels, it is a row about whether ordinary people are still allowed to believe their country should look like a country.
Beautifully put.
Fun too.
And on that note, we'll leave it there.
Let us know what you think. Are solar farms a necessary part of Britain's energy future, or are we being asked to accept a false choice between food security and climate policy?
Thanks for listening, and we look forward to next time. And please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps more people find the channel.
See you next time.